41 years ago today, July 17th, 1980, Ronald Reagan accepting the Republican nomination, changing our nation's trajectory at home and around the globe. Let's look at the significance of that moment with two prominent presidential historians. Craig Shirley has written several books about the great communicator, including Rendezvous with Destiny and Reagan's Revolution. We're also joined by Doug Weed. He was an advisor to President George H.W. Bush and author of Inside Trump's White House, The Real Story of His Presidency. Good afternoon to you both. Doug, I want to put that speech in context because we hear the echoes of Jimmy Carter. We see it everywhere right now, the inflation, 13-year high. Talk to us about what we were facing then and the eerie similarity to what we're facing today.
Yeah, this was very personal for Ronald Reagan, Joe. In November 1979, I had dinner in his home with he and Nancy in Pacific Palisades. The following day, he left for New York City, where he would make his announcement to run for presidency. And I was showing them pictures that were taken from Aranya Pratet on the Thai border, where Pol Pot had massacred 4 million of his own people, half the population of his own Cambodian people. And here were pictures of dead bodies as far as you could see. There were tears in his eyes. He understood communism. He understood what the people of Cuba are going through right now. There was no mistake about it. There was no playing footsie with communism. They were deadly. And he took it on and he stood up to them. Remember, Henry Kissinger at a dinner in Montreal, a live mic picked him up saying to a diplomat, "This is the era of the Soviet Union." A lot of people despaired and had already written off capitalism, and they were already embracing communism as they are today. Reagan stood up to it.
Craig, I want to come to you because we're seeing these Cuban protests now in the streets of Havana. We're seeing the solidarity of the Cuban people and many Americans in the streets of Florida across this nation. We're looking at what could potentially be something akin to the Arab Spring in our own hemisphere. Do you see the parallels between what happened in the Middle East and what is now happening in Cuba, a fight and a struggle for core freedom and core justice?
Yeah, Joe. Yes, the Middle East, but more so, I would say the Warsaw Pact, which Reagan had a direct hand in liberating. Reagan, if he was in the White House, would be all over the Cuban issue. He'd be leafleting the Cuban people. He'd be sending in books. He'd be sending in foodstuffs. He'd be sending in people to help organize the protests and the overthrow of the communist government there. He would do everything he can to create freedom for those people in Cuba.
We know what he would do because we saw what he did then. And make no mistake about it, there was just as much sympathy in the national media for communism back then as there is today. Widespread in the American deep state, in the State Department, and in other agencies of government. Widespread sympathy with Marxism and communism. But Reagan would stand up. At great risk, he stood up. And it surprised a lot of people that American people responded and they said, yes, we're with you. Yes. And I think today they're looking for someone who will stand up.
Absolutely. Craig Shirley, Doug Weed, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again soon.
You bet, Joe. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Joe.